So now for our final keynote speaker. Sister Norma Pimentel is the Executive Director of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley, the charitable arm of the Catholic Diocese of Brownsville in Texas. Her ministry includes oversight of various services, including emergency assistance, homelessness prevention, disaster relief, clinical counseling, pregnancy care, and food programs. She founded the Humanitarian Respite Center in McAllen, Texas, which has served 150,000 souls. In 2015, Pope Francis recognized Sister Norma for her work with immigrants, thanking her for her humility and her efforts. Sister Norma was also honored with Catholic Charities USA Martin Luther King Jr.'s Keep the Dream Alive Award in 2015, and the University of Notre Dame's Laetare Medal in 2018, which is considered the most prestigious honor given to an American Catholic. Please join me in welcoming Sister Norma Pimentel.
Thank you, Sister. Wow, I thought it was going to be very few people here today. By this time, ya casi todos se van, ¿verdad? Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me. I am happy to be here. This is my very first time that I come this far, all the way to this beautiful state of Washington. Thank you. It's gorgeous. Recently I just came from Colorado Springs. They invited me to go speak there. And one thing that happened there is I saw a movie. They put a movie for us called The River and the Wall. Have anybody seen that? Oh my goodness, you should see it. I was amazed at this movie. It was about the Rio Grande River, from El Paso all the way to Brownsville. And these 5 very heroic young men and women, they went through the river, whether it was through bicycles until they could no longer go in a bike because the bikes were completely not useful. They went on canoes, and they went on horses, and finally ended up all the way to Boca Chica, which is the opening, where the river ends in the Gulf of Mexico. What I saw in that movie was so amazing. I have never seen the Rio Grande River in the magnitude of beauty that God has created for us. Right here in our own country, in South Texas, right all the river, you see the canyons, and the wildlife, and it's so majestic that I said, I can't believe I'm part of this. I live right here at the border in this beautiful land of Texas, right at the border with Mexico. The movie is made so that we can have a better understanding of what is happening when we put up a wall and how it's going to destroy that wildlife and the beautiful creation God has made for us in this country, right at South Texas. So I encourage you to see that. It's online. You can go Google it. You can see it anywhere they have it. It's free, and you will definitely appreciate what it is that we have, the wonderful Rio Grande River, and it's part of who we are here in the United States. One of the things that they helped us see was the importance of life, wildlife, because the person, the photographer, the filmmaker, that's his passion, wildlife. And he fell in love with the Rio Grande River, and he wanted to make this film for us. And when I saw it, I came to realize the importance of life, not just wildlife, but all life. And in this conference, you have been hearing right from the beginning last night with Bishop telling us about the gospel of life and what that means. To understand and recognize the sacredness of life, all life. And when you get up close and see it with your own eyes, like I was able to appreciate through that film, the beauty of all the different kinds of wildlife that we have right at the border, that it will be destroyed once that wall goes up. And I told them there that as beautiful it is to see all those animals in creation at its most beautiful way, the most beautiful creation God has created is mankind, human beings. And yet, we see that the wall is going up because of the many thousands of people that are coming to our country looking for life. I am privileged to live in the border. I'm a native of the valley, the Rio Grande Valley. And because I'm there, I have seen the families and I have seen the children. And it is, for me, something that is hard to understand how it's possible for us to not care. You know, our country is a beautiful country, a country that we must protect, that we must know who enters our country, that we have laws, like Bishop has very well made us aware of the different kinds of laws that we have. But there's some laws that don't respect life and destroy life. And we must question that. Because our country, as beautiful as it is, it must be a country that lives out to respect all life and the sacredness of all life. And that whatever things that we do to make our country better, it can be without neglecting the fact that life is sacred. All life is sacred. You know, I believe that defending life, like defending the immigrants, and protecting them and being a voice for them so that they can be heard, is something that is our responsibility. Unfortunately, because of all the what we hear on the news, and we hear all this negative rhetoric that immigrants are criminals and that should not come to this country, we have find ourselves divided. Like, it's not okay for these families to come. There's so many of them. Why should they come here? Why should we care? And so many people just don't understand that is the right of every human person to flee a situation where they are in danger, and where more specifically their children are in danger, that they flee. They leave their country and go through a very difficult journey and find themselves right at the border of Texas with Mexico, or the United States with Mexico. And they're there because they're only asking for an opportunity for life. But many of us in this country, if we don't see them personally up front, we feel that they don't have a right to be here. One of the things I said, well, have them follow the law, get in line, wait for their turn. But there's no line. There's no chance that they have to come. Right now, we have thousands of them who have wanting to come to the United States after journeying from so far away, find themselves that they want to enter through the points of entry, and we make it impossible for them to do that. Our laws are telling them, before, if you ever cross the bridge to Mexico from the United States, like in Brownsville, Texas, you can just completely cross over and show your documents. Well, now we created somebody right at the middle of the bridge, an officer is right there, so that they don't cross into the property of the United States, and that way they don't have any right to claim anything at all. And so they come up to the bridge, at the middle of the bridge, and they ask that they want to claim asylum. They says, okay, take a number. And that number is given to the authorities of Mexico for them to distribute. And so they have to go get that number. But sometimes that number, if they go ask for it, the customs of Mexico are controlled by the criminal organizations, and they say, you're not going to give that number to just anybody. They have to give me $500 for every person, okay? So even the authorities of Mexico cannot give that number just to anybody without first the cartel controlling the money to get for that number. So we're participating in that corruption. You all remember that picture was so tragic that we saw everywhere, the dad and the little girl who passed away in the river, they were drowned. That was their reality. They came to the border, asked to cross, and they told them, you need to go back and get that number. They went to get that number, and they asked them for those $500 for him, for the dad, $500 for the mother, and $500 for the little girl. They didn't have the money. So they had to make other decisions. So they chose to go through the river with the hope they could cross it and make it safe. But they didn't. And we saw the tragic, what happened. They died. All because we did not give them permission to go across and ask for protection, for asylum. Like them, many others have died. And today we see thousands of them, the families, in the other side, right at the border. We used to receive them at our center in McAllen, Texas, which is where, since 2014, we began to receive the many families that were coming across to the United States. Border Patrol would apprehend them, and Border Patrol would then release them, give them permission to travel, to continue that legal immigration process at another point in the United States, many of whom are possibly here in your own state. We receive thousands of them. Our community in South Texas, one of the poorest communities in the United States, yet one of the most generous community, because out of their own little that they have, they join together with me to make sure that these families would get the basic things that a human person needs, because they've been on the road for so long, for weeks, possibly months, and they have never taken a shower, for eaten a proper meal. And once we receive them, when they walk through our doors, after Border Patrol brings them to us and tells us to help them, because they've been already cleared and they're going somewhere in the United States, and they're giving us the opportunity to help them. And as soon as they walk through our doors, you see them in their faces. full of tears, of unbelief that finally in their most difficult journey, they find somebody who cares. People like yourself that come down to the border to help, to offer care. I remember back in 2014, an officer of the city government came over, and one of the very first days that we started our response, a humanitarian response, and he said, "Sister, what are you doing here?" And it was a place of huge, I borrowed this parish hall from a local parish that was just a block and a half from the bus station, and instantly created the humanitarian response, where everybody just came over, and I just, "Esperanza, I see you at the parish hall." And they said, "What for, sister?" I have no idea. Just call your friends, have them call their friends, have them bring milk and bring everything you can think of. Sure enough, that day and the days after that, the whole parish hall was an amazing operation with mountains of donations, all through the generosity and the willingness of everybody from that area, from everywhere, to help. So when the officer comes and tells me, it was late at night, and he comes, "Sister, what are you doing here?" And I turned and looked at everybody like I was looking at you all. And I said, "Restoring human dignity. That's what we're doing." My goodness, I think this man did not expect my answer, because as soon as I said that, he took a step back and he waited a second or two and then comes back and asks me, and he tells me, "Sister, if I had a magic wand, what would that magic wand do for you?" Showers? Sure enough, that evening we had a portable unit of 8 showers. And the next day we had the mayor of the city of McAllen, Jim Darling, giving us anything and everything that we needed to make sure our operation and our humanitarian response was successful in every single way that was possible. We had tents with air conditioned, clinic, mobile clinics, everything. It was amazing how we as a city, as a community, the whole Rio Grande Valley came together to respond and to be present. Because everybody, law enforcement, the doctors, the restaurants, families, every faith denomination. I remember once I was doing a talk show outside, people were asking me questions from this radio station, and this young man, he says, "Sister, I'm Catholic, but being the fact that you're doing what you're doing, I'm choosing to stop being Catholic from now on." I said, "Mijito, no sé qué vas a hacer, because every single denomination church is here with me, you know?" So you talk about Jewish, Lutheran, Baptist, United Methodist, you name whoever, evangelical, we were all one community, one church. It was beautiful, and it was amazing how we could all come together because we all believed in the same thing: respect for human life, the sacredness of life. And so I think this is what needs to bring us together. We need to pull away from that culture of indifference that destroys us and divides us, and not allow ourselves to be afraid, because that's what they're doing to us, to our communities, to our church, to all of us, thinking that believing in helping others is wrong. It paralyzes us. It keeps us sort of like in a bubble where we don't feel, where we don't have any feelings, and we don't care. I remember seeing a politician come down to the valley, to the Rio Grande, to one of the detentions, and he was standing right there, 2 steps away from where these families were in those cages, and he had no expression in his face, the fact that the parents and the children were crying and they were saying, and he didn't react at all. It's that bubble that keeps us heartless, makes us believe that it's wrong to care. I remember once this lady comes over when we had a shelter, and I needed a Xerox machine because I needed to make copies because we were filing some asylum applications. And I asked her to come down. And she comes and she tells me, "Sister, I have to tell you, I'm against 100% of what you're doing here, helping these illegal aliens." I said, "Thank you for telling me. Let me show you what I do and why." So I introduced her to the families, to the children, to the mothers. When we got back to the office, she turns around and she tells me, "Sister, I am 100% in favor of what you're doing. 100%. Amazing. I can't believe I've never met a better business salesperson ever before. You convinced me 100%. I think if we see, it is automatic. How can you not care? How can you not see the fact that that person before you is a human being? It's a person, part of the same human family. We need just to invite others, everybody. I need to see. I invited President Trump to come down. When he was coming down, I told him, "Mr. President, since you're coming down, I invite you to come visit us." I wanted him to see the families and the children with the hope that he could feel what I feel. Back in 2014, when we started to receive these families, I knew that in those detention facilities, there were thousands of kids. They were kept there because the United States was not prepared to manage or handle that number of children. They were classified as unaccompanied children. Not because they didn't come with family, but because they didn't come with mom and dad. So there was a law to protect them, to make sure they're not human trafficking children. Sometimes we received a grandmother. I remember one night, this grandma comes to me. It was late at night, maybe 10 in the evening, and she was crying and said, "Por favor, my little girl, they took her away from me. She's gonna be so scared if she doesn't see me. Please, I need her to be with me." I said, "They won't give them to you because you're not the mother. But you have to try, please." So I did. I went to the detention facility and they didn't give me the little girl. She was 5 years old. Just like her, so many others are separated. So I went to see the kids in detention. I think it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Nobody had ever gone into those detention facilities. I opened the door. I asked, I saw the kids in these cells, all their faces looking through a glass. I said, "I want to go in there." I said, "No, sister, you can't. I want to pray with them." How can you say no to a nun, right, that wants to pray? I got away with that. They couldn't say no to me. So I walked in. Could barely walk through because there were so many of them. Go all the way to the center. They're all around me, crying, their faces full of tears. "Sácame de aquí. Please get me out of here. Ayúdame." It's so hard. little ones, 5, not more than 10 years old, without their parents. Here in the United States, we're doing that. Let us pray. Vamos a rezar. Diosito, ayúdanos. And they said, Diosito, ayúdanos. Please, God, help us. We are doing this here in the United States. Children, how can we not help them? I walked out of that room very clear in my mind. I had a mission. I had to speak for them. We cannot let that happen. It is our job to defend life. If it's happening, it's because we're failing those children, those families. They're not criminals. They want to make them so that it's not our problem, so we can turn our back on them. But we've heard since yesterday and today that it is our problem. Life is about us. We must change this culture of indifference to a culture of encounter. An opportunity to meet each other and to show that we care. That our ability to love comes from the recognition that we're loved ourselves by a God that is love. A God that tells us that we must stand up for the rights of others. That our country, as beautiful as it is a country that can welcome the stranger and can offer them a safe passage to understand their reality and to figure out what it is that they need, making sure they're safe and that they're treated with dignity and respect. I think this is who we are here in the United States. We can create solutions, real solutions, that address the real problem of immigration and why people have to flee in the first place. It's so easy to go after those who are not criminals because they're not running away. They're coming to us asking for help. Our country must address and go after the criminals. Because if we don't, it's going to be a big problem having to deal with that. I think that I have to show you some pictures. I forgot. This is in Matamoros. Actually, this is at the bus station. Right before they come to us, that's where they're in line. And this is once they arrived, this mom and this child, like so many others. When you ask them, when they arrive, the very first question that I like to ask is, ¿Cómo estás? How are you? And it's when they come to a realization of where they are and what they've been through and how difficult it has been for them. It's a dad. I see dads at our center that hold children in their arms, consoling them because they're crying. It's not even their dad, their father. And they care for them. And these are the kind of men that we're seeing at the border that are classified as criminals, that we're turning our back on them because we don't want them here. And these are the kids. The kids that the moment you offer them love and care, they smile and they're beautiful. We bring out the best. And they're so happy with the little things that you can give them. And so many babies. This is in Matamoros, just across from the United States, Brownsville, Matamoros, where the families are now, thousands of them. I have never seen so much human suffering as I'm seeing today because of that new policy, MPP, Remain in Mexico, is causing so much pain and suffering, so many children, so many families. They have to wait. They came to ask for asylum, and they're told, you have to wait in Mexico. Not 1 week, not 1 month, but right now, the next appointment is for January, February of 2020. So they're out there in the middle of nowhere, across the bridge, in conditions so inhumane, totally relying on the generosity and care of so many little pockets of people from the United States that are going and helping them, taking them food, taking them things that they may need. Many of them on these little tents, these little igloos, tiny little ones, 4 people are in there. And those are the conditions that we're seeing today because of our policies. Policies that are working. They're successful in discouraging humanity, breaking them, destroying them totally, right before our eyes. And we are to blame for that. I think it's all our responsibility, us, to do something about it. We must have our hearts burning inside of love, to welcome and to embrace life. We must be open to encounter the other, that other that's different from us, and be a voice for them so that they can have a voice as well. The question is, what will you do? The time is now. Don't miss the opportunity that you have before you to be guided by the tenderness of God so that your faith can change the world. Thank you.